Okay, now we want to do the area chart or the Visual Data Tool area chart using data from an Excel sheet. To begin, we'll first set up our Excel sheet. So I'm going to come into my hard drive here. I have an Excel sheet that's already set up within my documents here. I'm going to go ahead and open that. Mine is called Class 2. Whatever you want to name yours, you can. So let's go through this Excel sheet fairly quickly here to show you what's going on. I have a top row here with our options or our key data. This is showing us what these actually are. So here's the symbol, the high price, the low price, and actual stock price of the day. The number here, or just a key variable, you can see we have 3-letter tickers here and some data coming in here. So a couple of things that we'll need to know. We'll need to know this box here, right here, this N data, which could be any number or variable. We could call it VNA or whatever. So we'll need to know that. We'll also need to know a title of which price or which column we want to drag or which column we want to get the data from. And we'll also need to know the name of this particular sheet here. We have a couple of different sheets within this Excel file. Stock is the tab that we'll want to know. And of course, we'll also want to know the name of this Excel sheet. Besides that, we'll also need to know where we saved it. So once we go ahead and close this, we're going to click on this little option here. I'm going to say Properties, and it's going to show me the path here, and I'm just going to copy this path because we're going to need that. I'm going to go into Vizrt here, and to begin, we're going to start with a container, and we're going to use some DataPool plugins. So we're going to go into our container plugins, into the data folder here on the left. And the first thing that we want to use is a data text. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this up here. We'll also obviously want a font with that. So I'll come over to my font folder here and just drag a thin font, condensed, maybe up there. Okay, so I have a font, and I'm going to come into this data text. And what we want to do, since we're using DataPool, is we want to set up a test bed here so that we can actually tell if we're getting data from our Excel sheet when we set up the DataPool. And to do that, if you read the DataPool documentation, there's a setting in there. It's called Reader Console. If you put this within your data text, it will tell you if you're actually reading some DataPool when you set it up. So we're just going to leave this as is for the moment. We'll just rename this if we want. We can call it data test. I'm going to create another group here, and this time what we're going to use is the data reader. So we're going to go into the built-ins again, into our data folder on the left, and we're going to drag this plugin called the data reader up onto our group here. And this is where we needed all the information from our Excel sheet. So first, within our data reader plugin, we want the query type to be Excel. And down underneath, we want the file name of our Excel sheet. Now, it doesn't just need the file name, it needs the complete path of where we're saving it. So we're going to type in the path, or in my case, I copy and pasted the path. I'm going to hit backslash, and then we're going to give it the name of the Excel sheet that we're using. So in our case, we call it Class 2. And the extension is XLSM. Now we need to tell it what tablet or sheet we were using. In our case, ours was stock. Now we need the key. So that's the top row on the first thing. And we also need to know what fields we want to read. So we'll do the price column. So we'll type in the name of that column in the fields to read. Now down here in the DP field name, this can be whatever we want. So for the moment, I'm just going to name this VAR for variable, all capitals, because I'm going to go into the built-ins here, into the Visual Data Tools, and find our area chart. I'm going to drag this area chart up into my scene tree, and I'm going to click on it. And within our data Y is where we want to match up that naming convention. So I had VAR as the DP field name, and I'm going to put the VAR in the data Y. Okay, I also want to make sure the data delimiter here is set up. We can use anything. I'm using a comma. That will be fine. So lastly, before you do any design, we want to make sure that we can get the data in here. So I'm going to change the shared memory here to scene, and then I'm going to come back to our data reader here, and down in the middle we have a field is as. So we're going to change this to shared memory. And here you can see that we have our shared memory type is set to scene. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that is set to scene. Shared memory variable again is called var, and if you want to check that to make sure our shared memory type set to scene matches up with our shared memory type scene within the area chart. Okay, you come back into your data reader. You want to save your scene first, then come back into your data reader, and we're going to hit load. And you can see once we hit the load data that it creates our bar chart or area chart here. Now, once you get the data in, it's as simple as coming in and messing with the different settings here to adjust it how you want it. So if we wanted to adjust the width out here, we could do that as we showed in the previous tutorial. You can do other things like bevel it. You can make it 3D. We can add materials on it. You can add an image on it. So if you wanted to get a little bit more involved in the design than just adding a material, you could add images to it as well. And again, these would work the same way. You come over to your transformation editors and your image editor and stuff like that and reposition this. So if you wanted to rotate it to see the angle, you can use the scaling and the repositioning within the transformation editor to reposition this where you want. Now, within the area chart, there are a lot of different options for you. We went through a few of them in the previous tutorial, such as the data X fit and the data Y fit. We have the width adjusted here. We have it made into a 3D type chart. We showed you how to add a pointer if you needed to in the previous tutorial. But now if we needed to actually keyframe this on, what we could do is come into our selection here. There is a start and a stop. The start is set to 0%. The stop is set to 100%. So if we needed to keyframe this on, we could come over and adjust this stop percentage, hit set keyframe, and then readjust this out to 100 again to have this animate on if we needed to. So again, just to recap, what we did is we copied our Excel path file here. We gave it the name of that particular Excel sheet that we're working with, and this is the first row data that we're working with. We tell it which field we want to read. So right now we're reading price, and then we gave it a variable here with a delimiter. If we come over to our area chart, we just needed to make sure that our shared memory was on to match up with our data reader, which has our shared memory over here. That data should fill it, and depending on which version you're using, you may just need to save it, close the scene, and then reopen the scene for the data to actually trigger. So if we wanted to change this data to read a different column, what we would need to do is come over to our fields to read, and instead of reading our price column, if we wanted the high column or the low column, we could change the variable name within there to whichever reflects in the Excel sheet, and you would reload the data there, and you can see that when we reloaded it, that it created a completely different chart here. So if we wanted to go to the low column, we could type that in there and hit load, and it will reload that data from the Excel sheet.